You can skip this section if you looked at video 1 in this series. Otherwise, I'll go over what we're looking at. And this is the different types of behavior modes that we're interested in modeling. And there's exponential growth, exponential decline, goal-seeking, S-shaped or logistics growth, overshoot and collapse, and oscillation. And the argument is that these behavior modes will show up in the actual data. And it may not be identical. It may be a combination of these different behavior modes that you're observing in your data. And when we're modeling, we want to know what type of structure will generate the different behavior modes. And this series of videos is going to show you what structure, or what very simple structure, will generate the different behavior modes. This graph and the model I'm going to build here is going to be of goal-seeking behavior. With the goal-seeking behavior, you can see that it's starting high in this case, and it's declining, and then it's declining at a gradual rate until it reaches an equilibrium, and it's just in steady state for quite a while. Goal-seeking behavior is generated by a balancing feedback loop that's dominating the system, and this could have been approaching from below or above. And with goal-seeking behavior, what we're going to see is that the variable of interest is going to come into some form of steady state or equilibrium. And I'm going to develop a model of that to show you guys how it works. So I've opened Stella, and it's just at the very beginning. So you can see over on the right-hand side, I haven't set my time specs or anything. And I'm going to make a guess here, and I'm going to do an example of feed for cattle or some type of animal is what it is, some type of domesticated animal. So let's run this for, let me pick 52 weeks. We'll see how that works. Oops. So I'm going to start out with 0 in my starting time, and I'm going to run it out to 52 weeks. And instead of months, I'm going to type in weeks here. The DT is fine, and everything else is set here, and I'm ready to start my model. I'm going to go in and click on a stock and bring it down. I want this to be in the middle of my video, so I'm going to drag this around. And I've got that stock. And I'm going to label this stock average cost of feed. And I'm going to hit a return in here so I can square that up within my stock. And I'm just going to open that a little bit. There we go. I have the average cost of feed. And there's going to be an inflow to this. And I'm going to click on my flow rate and click on the left-hand side and hold down and drag and make sure I'm on top of the stock again. And I'm going to name this. This is going to be the net change in average cost of feed. I'm going to go up to my converter, and I'm going to add a current cost of feed. I'm going to click on the converter again, and I'm going to come down into here, and this is going to be the gap in current cost to average cost. And as I say gap, you can imagine that I'm not doing this as a ratio, I'm doing this as a gap. I'm comparing two things, and I'm going to subtract one from the other. And I'm going to add one more variable. I'm going to go up to my converter up here and click on this, and I'm going to go for an adjustment time. Adjustment time for costs. And those are all the variables I need. I'm going to go up to my connector, and I'm going to click and hold down. I'm going to go from average cost of feed to the gap. I'll click on that again and go from current cost of feed to the gap. I'll click on my converter again and go from the cost to the net change. And on a Mac, what I can do is if I hold down the Option key, it will pick up the last variable I'd selected in my menu bar. So I'm getting the connector and I'm connecting and going. I'm just going to drag this around so that it's on top. And now it's time to write equations. So let's start with the current cost of feed. I'm going to go in here, and let's say that it's going to be $25 per pound. Might be extremely high. I don't know what kind of feed that would be. But let's go with the dollars. per pound, and it's a backslash. It's going to be per pound. So I've got that. And now I'm going to go up to my average cost of feed, and it needs an initial value as a stock. And I don't want to start at the 25 because it'd be an equilibrium. So I'm going to just put in a starting value of 50. And the units here are going to be dollars per pound. And you can see I'd selected it already. It's better to click on that and select it in case you spelled anything differently. I've made that mistake before. I'm going to go to my gap in current cost to average cost and select that. And this is going to be the current minus the average. And what it is this is a stock. It's actually called a smooth stock. And I'm looking at the average of the stock and how it's changing over time. So I'd always be subtracting what's coming in from what is actually in my stock. And when I'm saying coming in, you can imagine it's going to be flowing in that way. So I've got that set, and this is actually going to be in dollars per pound, right? Dollars per pound, and that's fine. And I'm going to go down, and so this adjustment time, the idea here is how long would it take if the price changes? How long would it take a farmer to realize that the price changes for real? Or that the average cost of the feed is changing. If it was immediate, they probably, for the first couple of weeks, maybe not do anything. So how long would they wait before they determined that this change is sort of a permanent thing? And I'd usually get this information from talking to folks. For now, I'm just going to select, I'm going to say it's going to be a long time. Farmers are conservative. They don't want to jump to conclusions. I'm going to say it's 10 weeks. I can change this later. I selected 10. I'm going to go down and click on weeks. And there we go. And there's one last variable to look at, and that's going to be the net change. And because it's a net change, when I double click on this, I'm going to go up. I know it should be a biflow, meaning that if it's a positive number, because this arrowhead here is solid, it's going to flow in with a positive number. And if this happened to be a negative number, it would flow out, so that my average cost of feed is going to be adjusted. And this is simply going to be the gap divided by my adjustment time, and that's going to give me units in dollars per pounds per week. And everything should work out now. I'm going to go up and click on the graph. I'm going to make a graph here. And I'm interested in two things. I'm interested in this goal, and I'm interested in the average cost of feed. So for now, I'm just going to double click. I've selected the graph, and over here on the right, you can see I can click on this plus sign, and here are all the variables in the model. And I'm interested in stock, the average cost of the feed. I'll click OK. I want to add in that current cost of feed. That's my goal, actually, right? So I'm going to put the current cost of feed in here. And I can imagine that this current cost of feed in a more complex model will be changing on different variables. But this is the goal right now that this is going to go to. So I'm still in here. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to click on my wrench. And I want to name this. So let's think. This is the average cost versus current cost. And if I go down to the wrench, what I've done in here, or this paintbrush at the bottom, I'm going to click on that. And you can see that I have my heading set to 24, and I've selected bold. And then I've got 18 and 18 for my variables along the side here. These numbers are working out pretty well. I'm going to go do one more thing to see how this looks. I'm going to go back to my wrench, and I've got 5 and 3. I think that might be fine. I'm going to slide down, and you can see where it says Show Grid here. I'm going to click on the Show Grid. I'm going to make the X grids. I want to make it the same number, so it's going to be 5. Whoops, it's going to be 5, and you can see how it lines up on my dates there. And then I'm going to go down to the Y, and I have 3 selected. So I can move that up to 3, and you can see I have this nice grid. And let me do one more thing. The Y labels. Let's go with 5 Y labels, and let's increase the dates. And what I want to do is I want to go to a number that's going to give me a nice even number on the bottom. Maybe between 0 and 52, which is 53. There we go. So if I do 14, now I have to go down and readjust these grids, right? I'm just going to click and make this 14. And I'm going to make this, there we go. I've got this nice grid going. And now I can simulate and see how my average cost per feed, which is starting out at the 50 up here, is going to adjust to my current, which is a constant actually. It's just staying the same in this case. I'm going to go down and click on the Run button, and you can see how my average cost of feed is adjusting to or seeking out the goal of the current cost of feed, which is $25. And I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to double click on the white space, and I'm going to go into my average feed, and I'm going to say that let's start it out at a different value. I'm going to say it's going to start at 5, so it's going to be lower, and it's going to have to adjust. I'm going to click the U-turn button to reset my simulation, and then I'm going to click on the graph. And I want it to reset so you can see down here is where that 5 is now. This is the average cost of feed, and it's going to move up towards. The scale is automatically adjusted too because of the way the scales are set right now. And I'm going to click on the Run button, and there you go. It's adjusting. And one of the things we can do, I'll do one more thing. I'm going to double click on the white space. I'm going to double click on my adjustment time. I'm going to go down here to this hashtag on the right and click on the hashtag. I'm going to go to my input range, and I'm going to let it go down. It should, yeah, it can't be 0, right? I'd be dividing by 0. I'm going to make it 2, and it was 10, so I'm going to allow it to go up to 18. So I'll give it a nice range there. And now if I run the model, and anytime I click Run, it's just going to rerun this model. This slider I can move, and you can see how my blue line is adjusting is what's happening. And I could go in and do the same thing with my current cost. I'm going to double click on the white space, double click on the current cost. I'm going to go up. It's still selected on that hashtag or that number sign. And I'm going to make it so it can go down to from 25 to 10, and let me go up 15 to 40. And I'm going to click on this auto precision and say we're going to do it a buck at a time. So it's 1, let it auto scale. And if I simulate again, I'm going to get the same numbers. And now if I change my goal, you can see how these axes are changing. I've dropped it to 10, but the behavior is the same. It's approaching the goal from below, and that's because I set this average cost of feed and had adjusted that. And I'm going to do this one other way. So I've got this model, and let me go in and just put in the plus and minus signs. So I'm going to double click on this, and so if this increases, it's in the numerator, it's going to be a plus. Let me put it so you can see the plus sign there. For this link, it's in the denominator, so it's going to be a negative. You can see the negative sign there. I'll put it out so you can see it. I'm going to make the negative sign a little bit bigger just so it's easier to see. There you go. And now if my gap goes up, if the gap increased, if it got bigger, it'd be a positive number. This would increase, so it's going to be a plus sign. And let me put that down there. And then I'm going to go in and click on this. And this is a little bit differently. I want to put the pluses and minus signs, and I'm going to go down to the paintbrush and click on the paintbrush, and I can click on it, and you can see the positive sign is here. And now this looks like if this gets bigger, my gap should be closed. Oh, this is incorrect actually. If I double click on this, this should be negative, not because it's not a ratio. What it is I'm subtracting, right? So glad I cut that. This is a minus sign. And what I was thinking was I got a balancing feedback loop here. Wait a minute, it looked like a positive feedback loop. So now I'm going to run this model. And there we go. And what happens is the software is doing the calculations based on the math. And it knows that this is a negative link, and it identifies it as blue. So I wouldn't have to put the plus and minus signs on. And when I simulate this, what you see over on the right, I have the loops that are dominant. And if I click on this paintbrush, it just highlights the feedback loop here. And if I click on this icon to the right, this is my loop. And I can click and I can come over and I click on here, it tells me it's a B1 loop. And if I double click on the white space and highlight this, you can see how the feedback loop is highlighted. The others are graying out. And the point here is that, yeah, This is how to be looking at this stuff. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to move this, double click in the white space. I want to delete this for now. What I want to do is change the formulation. What I'm going to do is get rid of this intervening variable. Okay? And I'm going to delete that, and instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my current cost of feed to the flow, and then I'm going to push on that option key, and I'm going to connect the stock directly to there, and then I'm going to double click on this, and I'll get rid of this equation. And I have to use these variables up here, right? And it's the same equation as was in that other variable. I'm going to put a parentheses in. When I just put the left parenthesis in, it will automatically pull a right parenthesis out. And what this is I said it's going to be the current cost minus the average cost of feed. So it's the same formulation I had in that other variable, and it's divided by this adjustment time. And I want to do the minus before I do the division. And if you remember from algebra, there's an order of operations. So I put the parentheses to make sure I do that subtraction first, and then I'll do the division. So here we go. I've got this, and if I run this, it should be the same value. I'm going to open this up a little bit bigger, so I got a bigger feedback loop. I'm going to run this, and you can see it's the same behavior. And if I go down to my loops and click on this, I'll just throw this in. It's still B1. It's that balancing loop that's generating this goal-seeking behavior. So that's it for this video. I hope this makes sense, and I will see you. Thanks. Bye.